could affect their lives, the lives of their children, and their employment in the UK. The BNO visa is not a transactional visa. It is a moral commitment which the UK offered in response to the national security law and the dismantling of promised freedoms in Hong Kong. So I am deeply concerned about the government's decision to extend the route to indefinite leave to remain from 5 years to 10 years. In particular, that this lack of clarity over the BNO visa in the midst of increasing evidence of transnational repression from China and the looming planning decision on the Chinese mega embassy, it's concerning to me and to many of my constituents who could be affected by this change. The government must do better to provide assurance for the hundreds of thousands of BNO visa holders across the country, and this starts by giving them clarity over their immigration status and how this year's immigration white paper will affect them. I'm happy to give way.
Thank you, Member for giving way. She makes an excellent point about this being a part of a promise that we made to the people of Hong Kong. And when this route was introduced, the Chinese Communist Party warned those BNO applicants they should not trust in Britain. And if we change the goalposts in the way that we are proposing to do so now, we may in fact be handing a huge propaganda victory to that government. Does she agree with me that that would be a big mistake?
I thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I know he also in Carshalton and Wallington has many residents from Hong Kong, and I really hope that the Minister will take on board the point that we're making about the moral duty that we owe to these people, particularly in the light of increased oppression from China. But similarly, as my other honourable friend earlier pointed out, the skilled worker visa route has worked to offer a secure pathway for world-leading talent to join the UK's workforce. In coming to the UK, these skilled workers have brought value to the economy, to key sectors like the care sector and to their communities. And that's why the government's failure to give the detail on changes to the indefinite leave to remain qualifying period is so concerning. It not only risks upending the lives of so many residents and families, it also risks damaging our businesses and the economy. A skilled, stable workforce is a key part of any growing business, and recent government policy has already begun eroding the availability of this workforce in the UK. National insurance contributions have disincentivised hiring. Red tape with the EU has made it more difficult to hire skilled workers from abroad. The creation of Skills England risks failing in its aim to upskill the British labour force if the body is not given the independence it needs. Now, on top of all of this, the government's white paper has added uncertainty for businesses looking to hire employees, adding yet another barrier to growth. And that's why the government must provide clarity on the skilled worker visa as a matter of urgency. Many BNO visa holders have built their lives here in the UK, and they've made huge contributions to our economies and our local communities, especially in my constituency of Richmond Park. They've bought homes, they've started businesses, they've enrolled their children in schools. So I urge the government to offer more clarity on their plans for the 5-year qualifying period for those already on specific visa routes, and I also ask the Minister if they will confirm their commitment and honour their original commitment to protect these agreements. Thank you, Sir Jeremy.
David Pinto-Dushinsky.
Thank you, Sir Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. And I also want to join my colleague in thanking the Petitions Committee for securing this debate. I also want to thank Mr Lee for instigating the petition. I'm here to speak about the issue of the BNO visa. Sir Jeremy, our debate today should have two starting points. First, an acknowledgement of the historic commitment the UK made to the people of Hong Kong in the form of the BNO scheme. It's something we should be intensely proud of. Secondly, a recognition of the massive repression we've seen in Hong Kong, in particular since the enactment of the national security law. Rights that were guaranteed to the people of Hong Kong by the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration have been cast aside. Hong Kong's democracy's been replaced by a dictatorship, and its free press has been crushed. This is the context that has left many Hong Kongers feeling that they have little choice but to leave, to seek freedom and a new life here in the UK. I am proud that many people... yes.
Thank my honourable friend for giving way. Do you think also in this context we should be clear, when we say BNO, it actually stands for British national overseas. We are not talking about Hong Kongers or Chinese. We are literally talking about people we recognise as British national overseas because of our historic relationship. And do you think we should be a lot clearer about that in how we treat them within our immigration system?
Thank you. I thank my honourable friend for that excellent point. She's, of course, right. And I am proud that we welcomed many people who have that BNO status, who have that British overseas status, to my constituency in Hendon, particularly in Colindale. Our growing and vibrant community adds immeasurably to the life of our area. I've talked to many BNO holders who have come into the UK to start a new life. They are absolutely committed to our country for the long term. They are keen to put down roots. They are planning their working lives, their children's educations, their retirements here. But that is why the issue of the 5-year ILR timeframe is so important to them. Without ILR, BNO holders cannot get home fee arrangements at university for their children or access their pensions, leaving them in great financial difficulty. Moreover, without ILR, they cannot begin the path to full UK citizenship. When they applied for their BNO status starting in 2021, they did so on the basis of a 5-year ILR period. Extending the ILR period for them will potentially create great uncertainty and hardship. The government is absolutely right to tighten the rules on migration to address the appalling failures of the previous government, and the measures laid out in the recent migration white paper will make an important and welcome difference, and I fully support them. Yet, it is still worth considering the obligation we have to some groups in making this important change. Yes, absolutely.
Characteristically, he sets out eloquently some of the major uncertainties that are currently facing BNO holders. Considering that BNO applicants now make up less than 2% of visa applications, does he agree with me that the immense contribution they make to communities like mine in Altrincham and Sale West and communities like his, and some of the uncertainties they're facing, means that this policy has big costs and in reality minimal rewards as the government seeks to cut migration?
I thank the honourable member for his point, and it is of course right that this is a source of great concern to many people. But look, this is why I welcome the government's and the minister's willingness to listen and decision to consult on the measures in the white paper, including this issue. Ensuring we retain the 5-year ILR period for BNO holders who already have settled here would be a strong reaffirmation of the solemn compact we have made with the people of Hong Kong, and I believe it need not have huge ramifications, exactly to the member's point, for the broader migration system, especially because I believe BNO holders constitute a unique case due to their special status. It would give certainty to almost 200,000 BNO passport holders who have made the UK their home. It would be a beacon of British leadership. I hope we can find a way to support it. Thank you.
Pippa Hayles.
Thank you, Jeremy, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I congratulate as well the member for South Norfolk, and also congratulations to those who successfully brought this petition forward. And I rise today, as many, in support of the petition calling for Hong Kong British national overseas visa holders to retain their indefinite leave to remain settlement. You know, as we know, those visas are a lifeline. As we've heard, a moral commitment created in response to Beijing's crackdown on human rights and democracies. But it's the families who made life-changing decisions, leaving their homes, relatives, friends, on the understanding that if they worked hard, paid their way, built their lives here, contributed, they could settle permanently after 5 years. To move the goalposts now retrospectively would not only cause distress, it would be betrayal of the values of everything they think we stand for and we hope we stand for, which is we keep our word. Yeah. Chair, I have so many wonderful examples of many Hong Kongers in my constituency of South Cambridgeshire. And for example, 2 of whom one constituency wrote to me about, who've become invaluable to their community in Cherry Hinton. They help run toddler groups, holiday clubs for over 180 children, supporting families who speak little English. They're law-abiding, hard-working, deeply committed to their community. And yet they now live in fear that the rules will change midway, leaving their futures here uncertain. And I see no reason why those already here, already contributing, should be thrown into this level of anxiety. To delay their right to settlement would upend carefully prepared plans, heap financial pressure on families already struggling with the cost of living, and deny children who have grown up here their right to home fee tuition fees at university. Also, I'll give way.
As well as those anxieties, financial and educational, many Hong Kongers are under threats of transnational repression, as the Joint Committee on Human Rights report recently shown, including having bounties on their heads, some of whom do not have permanent status here. Is it not the case that we are putting anxiety on people who may be at risk of harm if they cannot stay here any longer?
Yes, and the Honourable Member makes a really, really important point, which, delaying their settled status would leave many of these people unprotected when travelling abroad and raise their stakes in terms of their own security and that of their families. And many families are already financially stretched. This is often exacerbated, as we have heard, by the BNO visa holders being blocked from accessing their pension savings with the National Provident Fund. With settled status, that would no longer be the case. And they've said to me, that would be best for everybody because they would then be contributing. They do not want to be a burden on the public purse. But we must never, as my honourable friend has said, never forget what's at stake. In Hong Kong, nearly 1,000 political prisoners remain behind bars for daring to exercise their democratic rights. And it's neither safe nor realistic for Hong Kongers to return. Chair, the petition before us is clear and just. It calls on us to stand by the word we gave and allow these people the BNO visa to settle after 5 years, not 10. So I urge the government and the minister to provide the clarity, the reassurance and exempt those already here on BNO visas from these reforms. Thank you.
Annie Beales.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's an honour to serve under your chairship. I think the vast majority of us want to see a more balanced and more managed migration system built on the principles of contribution and on fairness. And that's certainly what I hear from my constituents from all walks of life in Uxbridge and South Ruislip. But the question is, how do we get there? How do we get to a more managed level in a fair and a just way? And I think my constituents also have concerns that the two matters that we're debating today do not meet that fairness test. I've heard from many constituents deeply concerned about what these proposals might mean for them in terms of the extension of the indefinite leave to remain to 10 years, and particularly the retrospective nature of the application. Many have come to this country in good faith under the current system, have planned their lives on the assumption of the current system being in force. Many skilled people from right across the world face the choice of where to be a nurse, where to come, where to start a business and contribute. And I'm concerned that applying the 10-year qualifying period retrospectively to those already who live in the UK and made that decision a long time ago now would not be fair and would be deeply disruptive to their lives. I'm also not convinced that the retrospective nature would have any effect on the current levels of migration in this country. And secondly, the blanket policy, regardless of circumstance, of contribution, of needs, may also have significant and adverse qualities impacts that I hope the government will consider. And I'd encourage the government to think carefully and deeply about the implications of this decision on a variety of contexts, and particularly vulnerable migrants such as children and the elderly. One of my constituents wrote to me just today to raise an issue of the impact on child migrants and accessibility of university education. Without ILR, prospective students would have to pay full international fees, which are extortionate. And if this change comes to place, a child moving to this country at 10 years old who graduates having completed secondary school education throughout their time in the UK would not qualify for UK-based fees for higher education, would have to wait potentially a number of years further, delay their education or potentially put it off completely. The individual who contacted me, I actually happened to also meet last week with her mother, who's a neonatal care nurse at Hillingdon Hospital. Her mother and father have always worked, have paid taxes in the UK, contributed, active in the community. And this is the case for so many of my constituents who now call the UK home and keep our public services running. As we seek to grow our economy, is it really those who want to study engineering, maths, law, and those who want to work or study in the NHS to set up a business who we wish to see restricted as denies opportunities to get educated, to put down longer-term roots, and to contribute further to our nation's future? I'd implore the government to reflect deeply on the ILR changes and not to adopt a blanket approach, instead to create a system which encourages contribution, encourages community activity, encourages people to work in our public services, to support education and skills being added to our communities, not taken away. I'd also concur and agree with colleagues here today who've talked about our responsibilities to BNO visa holders. I'm very proud to represent many BNO visa holders in Hillingdon, and in particular Uxbridge and South Ryde, the seat I represent. One told me recently that this was a key pathway and crucial for their safety and providing hope to many of us in the community following the implementation of the Hong Kong National Security Law, which has severely undermined our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, protest and a free press. Many again have made the UK their home, not through an easy choice to make, but due to life-changing decisions and circumstances. And we're hoping that after 5 years of residence, meeting the quite strenuous requirements around English requirements, around the Life in the UK test, they would have the chance to apply for a definite leave to remain and 1 year later of citizenship. But I'd encourage the Minister to carefully consider the cases of those with B&O visas. Sir Jeremy, we can and we must reduce migration levels to a sustainable level. We can restore public confidence and ensure that the system is managed well, but we can also ensure that the system is fair, that it is just, that it encourages migration that works for our country and a system that works for people who come here and call our country home. Many of my constituents at the moment are deeply worried about the narrative that's taking place in Hillingdon and also nationally, which is seeking to divide communities to other members of our community. And I think at this time particularly we must stand together, we must celebrate our diversity and encourage people to reflect on the importance of difference to a successful and sustainable economy, society and country. And I hope as we reform our migration system, we won't forget this. We'll design reforms that work for our country, but also work for those who call our country home. Thank you.
Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak in today's debate and to stand alongside colleagues in defence of a promise that we made to the people of Hong Kong. Carshalton and Wallington is home to many Hong Kongers, situated in the London borough of Sutton, which has become a bit of a go-to location for new arrivals, with over 5,000 now living in our area. And it's no surprise that many of those local residents signed this petition. They know firsthand what's at stake. They took risks to be here, they've built their lives here, they've contributed to our community, and they've trusted the UK to be a safe haven. And we owe it to them to secure their future. Now, the B&O visa scheme was introduced in response to the imposition of the National Security Law in Hong Kong, a law that essentially criminalised dissent against the Chinese Communist Party. And this visa is a lifeline, rooted in the special and enduring ties between our two nations. And it also offered a clear pathway, 5 years to indefinite leave to remain, then citizenship. I'll gladly give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman giving way, and like him, I've a significant Hong Kong population in my constituency of Solihull, Western Shirley. There's about 4,500 across the borough. And does he agree with me they had a legitimate expectation that the rules of the game wouldn't be changed partway through, and to do so would damage the social contract we as a state have had with these people?
Maintain its promise to those people. As I was saying, to now consider extending that to 10 years would be a betrayal of trust. And this change will have damaging consequences. Young Hong Kongers would face a decade-long wait to access university at home fee rates. Families would be locked out of £3 billion worth of retirement savings, unable to access at the moment due to the restrictions placed in Hong Kong. Many would be immobilised, unable to travel safely without risking contact with Chinese consulates, and children born here would have to wait until the age of 11 to gain a passport. And all of this would play directly into the hands of the Chinese government, who have long claimed that B&O holders misplaced their trust in Britain. Changing the rules now would hand them a huge propaganda victory. Now, we've had constituents on B&O visas write to me describing how the limbo of waiting for indefinite leave to remain makes it difficult to continue their education or apply for the jobs that they want. Others have shared how they are being harassed or surveyed, even here in the UK, simply for speaking out or being politically active. And this is about safety. The Hong Kong diaspora in the UK faces transnational repression, a term that's no longer abstract. In recent months, we've seen surveillance and intimidation of activists, bounties placed on UK residents, physical attacks, including the assault of a protester at the Manchester consulate, and attempts to break into the homes of exiled Hong Kongers. These are no longer isolated incidents. They are part of a systemic campaign, and the UK must respond with clarity and courage. In our borough of Sutton, I've heard personal stories of fear, resilience and hope. Hong Kongers have opened businesses, joined our schools and enriched our community. We must not bureaucracy or short-term politics undermine a commitment that was made in good faith. We must stand by Hong Kongers, guarantee their rights and secure their futures in a way that we promised.
James Nash.
I mean, it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship today and to speak as the Member of Parliament for Rushcliffe, which is proudly home to over 2,000 Hong Kongers who have arrived under the B&O visa scheme, and it's that I would specifically like to focus on today. I thank my honourable friend from South Norfolk for opening this debate, and I also welcome my honourable friend, the member for Nottingham North and Kimberley, to his place as Minister of State in the Home Office, and thank him for joining us today on his first working day in office. I'm here this evening or this afternoon to make a simple, principled case. The 5-year pathway to settlement for B&O Hong Kongers must be retained. This is about trust as much as law, about keeping our promises and about keeping the faith of the people who place their futures in our hands. The B&O visa route was created as a humanitarian lifeline in response to Beijing's horrific national security law. The route is grounded in our legal, moral and historic responsibilities under the Sino-British Joint Declaration. It is not an economic channel, but a bespoke, safe and legal route for British nationals and their relatives who are fleeing repression in a former British territory where rule of law and human rights have been ruthlessly eroded. That is why there has been rare, enduring, cross-party support for this scheme since day one, and why any attempt to move the goalposts now would cut against the very reason that the route exists. Hong Kongers uprooted their families on the explicit promise of 5 years to indefinite leave to remain, plus 1 year to citizenship pathway. To lengthen the timeline mid-journey would be seen as a breach of trust. It would shake confidence in the UK's credibility far beyond the B&O community. The numbers tell their own story. Almost 200,000 B&O Hong Kongers now live in the UK. Crucially, the overwhelming majority came in the first 2 years after launch, and B&O now grants now account for about 1% of total visas. We must appreciate that today's debate isn't about headline immigration numbers, but about the welfare of a community that is already here. In my constituency of Rushcliffe, as I said earlier, over 2,000 Hong Kongers are currently on their 5-year pathway to ILR. The impact will be on them. Shifting the rules, as has already been mentioned, would hand Beijing and their regime in Hong Kong a propaganda gift. You trusted Britain, yet Britain broke the deal. We cannot allow that narrative to stand, which is the status for B&O students, pricing out the vast majority of B&Os currently studying for their A-levels at schools in my constituency from being able to start university until they're in their mid-20s. It would delay access to an estimated £3 billion in Hong Kong pension savings that can only be released once ILR is granted. This is £3 billion. I will.
Very grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. He's making an excellent case around what those with B&O visas are being put through by this white paper and the proposed legislation. In Dartford, I've been contacted by a very large number of people on skilled visas who are in a very similar situation. Would he agree with me that whatever the situation of people either on B&O or skilled visas, whatever may happen in the future with this legislation, that people who've come to the UK to contribute to our economy and society, that the least we should offer them is clarity on what they can expect from us, as well as fairness in not changing the terms on which they were accepted here in the first place?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention, and he's absolutely right. And I think the consensus here today is that that uncertainty and the idea of moving goalposts is something that we need to determine whether we support as a country. And I sincerely hope the Minister is listening about the sentiment in the room. Going back to B&Os, because many B&Os lack consular protection and cannot safely renew travel documents, a longer route would also trap families separated, unable to travel for study, unable to travel for work, and unable to see relatives abroad. To extend the pathway to 10 years would not be an act of administrative tidying, rather it would be a material downgrading of hundreds of thousands of British Hong Kongers' lives across the UK. Meanwhile, the community is contributing civically and economically. Hong Kongers are working, studying, volunteering, starting businesses, even serving in local government as councillors. They are precisely the neighbours and colleagues we want to keep, that my constituents in Rushcliffe want to keep, and many of those are also concerned about some of the broader immigration issues that have been referenced. The 5-year route was designed so they could put down roots quickly and securely. Extending the clock would defer integration, depress opportunity and waste potential. And therefore, to close, I echo the words of the tens of thousands of UK Hong Kongers who will be watching this debate at home. I want them to keep standing with Hong Kong. I want to keep our promise to Hong Kongers. I want to keep the 5-year route. That is how we honour our word. We support a thriving community that has so much to offer to our nation, and it's a way that we can show the world that when Britain gives its word, it will keep it.
Thank you. Before I call the next speaker, just a gentle reminder, 4 minutes is what we're aiming for. I won't impose a formal time limit unless I have to, but if we could keep close to 4 minutes, that would help. Chris Curtis.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I won't speak for too long, so I hopefully bring down that average time that you're aiming for, given I think most of the key important points of this debate have already been made by many of the previous speakers. I'd also like to thank the Petitions Committee for bringing this forward and for the opening speech by the member for South Norfolk. But I do think it is important to add my voice to the many voices that we've heard today in terms of the concerns about the changes to the deal around the BNO visas, particularly when it comes to the timelines on the indefinite leave to remain. I've got emails from many constituents across Milton Keynes, and I see my honourable friend from Milton Keynes Central in here as well, who I know has had many more. And I recently met with Yvonne from 852 CIC, a fantastic organisation in Milton Keynes, which represents and looks to integrate Hong Kongers into the community in Milton Keynes, who have shared their concerns with me about the changes which they fear may be coming under the immigration white paper. Of course, yes.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. Would he agree with me that the contribution of the Hong Kong community to Milton Keynes and to our diversity and to our strength as an economic powerhouse within the UK should not go unseen by the Minister and this government? And the reality is we made them a promise and we should keep it.